Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel CodeForTechSolutions. Today in this video we are going to cover very important topic. So today's topic is most important because most of the interview questions are getting asked around today's topic. So I have decided to create a video on this. So even if you mug up the answer for today's topic or concept, still the interviewer may ask the question with some tricky way. So just mugging up will not enough. So you need to understand the basic of today's concept. That's why today in this video we are going to cover that. So let us understand with some basic analogy. So we can take an example of the company. So to understand what is the class in Java. So class is nothing but a blueprint. Like for example, we can create a class of employee which is related to some company. So employee, it's a kind of one class, and the class is nothing but a blueprint with which we can create the object. What is the object? Object we can create from the blueprint from the class. For example, actual object or actual employee Sachin, John or Sammy. These are some name of the employees. These are the actual employees, whereas the class is just a blueprint. What is the instance? So we can say it's an running object which has some properties, like for example, object has some data like personal data, like each object has name, age and gender specific to that person. Like Sachin has its name, age, gender. Similar way John and Sammy has their own name, age and gender specific to themselves. What is the static? Static is nothing but the shared data which is related to the company. For example, here it's not the data of the employee, rather it is the global shared data which is related to the company. For example, what is the company of the employee, employee ID, role, all these related which are out of context of the employee data that we can keep as a static one, because that is going to be shared with all the objects. Next, like this keyword represents the self object or the current object. We can say employee or the self object, whereas the super will represent the parent role. For example, employee has the manager. From the employee we can access the parent object properties using the super keyword. So this is about how we can understand class, object, instance, static, this and super keyword with the help of the employee and the company class. Next, let us understand the static variable in more details. What is the static variables? Static variables basically belong to the class, and these are not belong to the object or any instance. Okay. So for example, from a class is a kind of blueprint, and from that class we can create number of objects. Now static variables does not belong to any object, rather they are belonging to the class itself. Now while in Java, like there is a sequence in some predefined way, all the things are getting loaded, like how the class is getting loaded, then how the instance variables, initialization blocks and all these things are get loaded in some sequence. So what is that sequence, and when the static variables will get loaded? So when the class load, that times the static initializer block, static variables, all these things which are static will get loaded. Now it has a single copy in a memory because static variables does not belong to any object. That's why it has only single copy in a memory. Next, it is shared by all objects. The objective of using the static variable is to be shared by the instance or the object. That's why we are creating a single copy which will get shared with all the objects. That is the intention of creating the static variables. Next, like it is great for counter or constant. For example, for a simple use case, if we want to know how many objects or how many employees or how many objects we have created or the count of the object, so that logic we cannot keep inside the employee class itself, because we want to know how many employees, how many employee count are there. So for that we need to create one static variable which is outside of the any class, like it should belong to the class itself, and whenever we create a object using the new keyword, that time that count should get incremented, so that we will get the exact count of how many employees or how many objects are created. So in short, like for use cases, like whenever we want to know about the number of objects or the count, in such scenarios, use cases, we can use the static variables. However, there are many other instances or examples wherein we can use the static variables, but these are some simple ones you can keep in mind. So this is about static variables. So what are the instance variables? Now instance variables are belong to the object, and these are unique per object. That means if we have created object with name Sachin, then it will have properties related to Sachin only, specific to the object. Each object has its own copy in memory. For each object there is a memory space allocated for each object, and within that it will have everything like properties and all. Next, like it represents the object state. So the state of the object is specific to that particular object. Now, what is the super keyword? So super keyword, basically in order to refer the parent class, we can use super keyword in Java, and with the help of super keyword we can access or call the parent constructor by calling the parent constructor as the first line. With that we can call the parent constructor. So we can access the parent methods as well using the super keyword, provided the parent method should not be private, and it is essential in inheritance. So basically, in short, like you can use a super keyword in subclass to access the parent class properties, like parent class non-private members or non-private methods you can call using the super keyword. Now let us understand what is the this keyword. So this refers to the current object. So we can use this, for example, we have seen super we can use to access the parent class properties, but the this keyword we can use for the current object, to refer the current object, and it resolve naming conflicts. Also, it will help in constructor chaining. For example, if we have multiple constructor inside a class, then we can call the one constructor from the other using this keyword. So this is the uses of this keyword. In short, like super we can use to access the parent class properties, whereas this keyword we can use to refer the current object. Now let us understand all these theoretical concept with some practical example. So in Java, how we can use that, let me show you. So this is our employee class, wherein we can define the static variables like this one. We're using the static keyword, and this is the company name, CodeForTechSolutions, and this is the total employees within this company. Now we made it as static because as when we create any new object, that time we want this total to be incremented by 1 every time we create a new object. That is the intention. Now these are the instance variable which are specific to the object or unique per object. For example, name and salary, and this is the constructor. Now you can see here we have name and salary we are passing to create a new employee, and here we are initializing with the passed name and salary the properties of the new employee. Okay, and we can see here we have incremented the total employee count, because we want the exact count, like as soon as we create a new employee, this count should get incremented by 1, and that is the intention. We have kept incremented our total employee count at this line inside the constructor. This is how we can use the static variables, and these are the instance variables we can make use of. Now here you can see this is the one other instance method, how we can create the instance method. And here we can see how we have accessed all those, like to create a new employee we have called the employee constructor, and this is the name and this is the salary. So that with this new keyword, whenever we create a new employee, that time the employee object will get created with the password name and salary, and this count will get incremented by 1 because we have created new employee object. Similar way we can create this employee object, and here we can see we are calling the static method using the employee class. Now for calling the static method, we do not need any object. We can simply call refer the class name, and on that class name we can call the static method, because static method belong to the class, not an object. Whereas to call the instance method, we are calling it the instance method on object. You can see instance method are we are calling on the object, because these are the instance method which belong to the object. Now this is about how we can use this, and to call we can use the this keyword to indicate the self object or the current object properties initialization, as well as for calling the constructor chaining if any. Similar way, we can use the super keyword to see the super keyword. Let's say this is an employee class, whereas we have string name, and this is the employee constructor, and this is the work method which is non-private, and this is the manager extends employee. Now let's say here we can see to call the employee uh, to call the super class constructor. In our case, employee is the super class. So to call the employee constructor, we are using super inside manager class, which is a subclass. Here we are calling the employee class constructor, and this will get created with this line, and accordingly we are going to initialize the department and other properties specific to the manager. The important thing is that we can call the parent class constructor using this super, or parent class properties which are non-private using the super keyword. So I hope you must have enjoyed this. Please do not forget to like, subscribe and share. Thank you so much for watching this.